Hey, I'm Daniel from Zep. I'm going to show you how I've built a memory agent using the new OpenAI Agents SDK, as well as Zep, which is a memory layer for AI agents built on top of a temporal knowledge graph. To learn more about Zep and its performance, you can read our recently published paper, which you will find on Archive. In it, we demonstrate that Zep is the state-of-the-art in agent memory. I've built a CLI here for the agent, and let's just walk through what I've told it. I've been discussing that I'm a little bit tired, as well as that I was up late because I was reading a book, The Parable of the Talents. We discuss Octavia Butler, who is the author of the book, and then I mentioned that another one of her books, The Parable of the Sower, is my favorite book. Let's go look at my user record in the Zep web application. We can pull up the graph that's been generated as a consequence of the conversation. Let's go take a look at the Parable of the Talents. Pull out the graph here and we can see that we have a fact on the edge between the user node and Parable of the Talents, and that particular fact specifies that I'm currently reading the book. What's interesting here is that we can note temporal metadata that specifies when that particular fact was created as well as when it was valid from. These may not necessarily be the same because I might have said I was reading the book last week. Let's now go down to Parable of the Sower. We can see that this particular node has been identified as a preference, and there's a fact associated with it, that Parable of the Sower is my favorite book. Let's start a new session with the agent, specifying my existing username, and let's ask the agent what my favorite book is. It's correctly identified as Parable of the Sower. Let's go take a look at the context that Zep has injected into the prompt as a consequence of asking what my favorite book is. Zep returns a comprehensive context, including both semantically relevant facts and nodes, as well as information or knowledge from adjacent entities in the graph. And we do this intentionally so that the agent has a very broad and nuanced understanding of the user's world. And here we have one of the top hits is that Parable of the Sower is my favorite book. We also see the temporal metadata associated with that particular fact. Let's now tell the agent that I've finished reading Parable of the Talents and I think it is my new favorite book. So the agent responds, but let's go inspect the graph now that I mentioned Parable of the Talents is my new favorite book. If we go take a look at the Parable of the Sower's fact, that it is my favorite book, we can see that it is now invalid. We see the expired at and invalid at dates are the same. The expired at date is the date that the agent learned that Parable of the Sower was no longer my favorite book. And the invalid at date could have been a relative date. For example, I could have mentioned I finished reading Parable of the Talents yesterday, and it is my new favorite book. And we see that new edge, Daniel's favorite book is Parable of the Talents, has been added between Daniel and Parable of the Talents. We also see that reads is now invalidated because I'm no longer reading the book. The OpenAI Agents SDK is a really nice framework. It allows you to build agents very quickly, and I feel like the abstractions are all in the right place. It also makes it really simple to implement memory. We can just retrieve memory from Zep and mutate the system instructions or system prompt by injecting the memory context into the system prompt so that on every chat turn, the agent has access to relevant context. Zep retains a longitudinal view of user state as it changes. And so your agent can reason with state changes. For example, asking what my favorite book was previously. Let's do that right now. And we see that the agent is able to turn around and respond that my previous favorite book was Parable of the Sower. I'll link to this example as well as the paper in the notes for this video. Would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Please do comment on this post.